That day couldn't have gone much better, Sam. You're in the 8 and a massive win over a finals rival.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm really pleased with the result. We probably got a little bit, lucky's probably not the right word, but they got some injuries and, quite early in the day they were down 1 on the bench and then 2 and then 3. So the odds were stacked in our favour, but we capitalised on that, which we had to do. We knew that. So I was really pleased with the efforts of the boys and the consistency. But definitely as a coach, I always think more things can go right.
Anyone in the box on percentage-wise in the last quarter?
No, I did. There was the crowd erupted for some reason or other, and someone did pick up the why, but very much attached to the process to make sure we go about it in the right way. We're not there yet. So for us, every game is a final, and every game has been a final for probably 6 weeks. We knew we might be able to afford to miss one game out of that. And we did that already, so we lost last week. So we lose again, we're finished. That's our attitude right now. And that was step 1 today. That was a win, but this week's just as big for us, because if we lose this week, the season's pretty much over again. It'll be the same the week after, and hopefully the week after that or the week after that. So our next loss will finish our season. So that's very much our message to our players. Today was a good day, but tomorrow's another game.
I guess, what does it say about the maturity of the group? The second time this year, you had that devastating loss to Port Adelaide, a similar loss in similar circumstances to GWS. Both times you've responded really strongly the next week. What does that say about the maturity of the group?
I don't. Every week you're trying to play your best footy. I think sometimes it's an easy narrative to say, oh, this means a lot to them, they're going to play at their best. Like every week, every team is trying to play their best footy. Now, if that means top 4's on the line, top 8's on the line, or you're playing to just build yourself, as we have been for the last 2 years, every club is trying to play their best footy. So every loss, there's heavy lessons, and they're a bit easier to learn for some reason. I think after you win, sometimes you've got just as much learning to do, but it's a bit harder to embed them because you don't associate them with pain. So last week, the lessons we learned out of the GWS game, we associate them with that feeling of losing a game from 28 points up. But by the same token, today against Carlton, there'll be some improvements we can make. There'll be some decisions that we got wrong, and we need to continue to improve because there's still a lot of life left in this season for us at this stage, and for us to be at our best when it really matters, the next month is going to be vital.
Was the ruthlessness of today's performance perhaps the most pleasing aspect, like just that going in for the jugular?
I was actually probably a little bit disappointed at that part of our game. I thought there was a couple of phases in the game when Carlton were trying to slow the game down and we started to slow it down too. So that probably wasn't. I didn't think we handled the. We talk a lot about controlling the narrative of the game, and I thought we didn't do that as well as we would have liked early on. And then later in the game, we obviously had it locked in our front half a lot, but we just couldn't put a score on the board. So, I guess a lot of credit goes to us. So there'll be a lot of made of our offensive play from today. But I was wrapped with our defenders. I thought if you were a Carlton forward today, there wasn't an easy matchup for you. There wasn't someone you would try to get yourself onto. I thought every one of our defenders was fantastic. They played their role. They were diligent when they needed to be diligent. They took risks when they needed to take risks. And I thought the consistency of our defence was what held us in. It's quite easy to get dragged into the offence. But I thought defensively we were so sound today, and that hasn't always been the case, but certainly over this last period, our defensive intent has been what's held us in really good stead.
Sam, you talk about what was happening down back, but the tackling, the relentlessness, and you're almost forcing them back and swarming in numbers, especially maybe even that second quarter, first half. Like, how pleasing was that?
Yeah, I think Carlton early in the game, they probably surprised us a little bit. They took a little bit more risk, and the handball receives, and they actually caused us a fair bit of trouble in the early part of the game with how quickly they were moving the ball. And then, fortunately, our defence held up really strongly and we were able to restrict the scoring. Once we adjusted and got a bit more pressure on the ball and we were able to tackle a bit better, I thought we looked a bit more consistent across the field. The tackling numbers for us has been bit inconsistent across the year. Sometimes we've been a little bit low in that area, but I think quite early in the game we were sort of plus 10 for tackles. But they were winning a lot of contested footy at the time, so you want to get one of those two things right. Ideally it's contested possession and tackles, but if you're losing one, you definitely want to be winning the other. And fortunately, in the early part of the game today, when they had their full contingent of players, the tackling was what probably kept us in the contest.
Any injury concerns with Will Days? You subbed him, you said tactical, but is there anything he's carrying across this last fortnight?
No, he was just cramping up. I think it was the first probably warm day we've had in a while, and he's obviously a really important player for us. We've had a couple of guys who have probably been a little bit sore midweek, and he's been one of those guys. But once he started cramping sort of late in the third, it's not really usual for him. So, he's an important player for us, and we had obviously when you have Luke Bruce as your sub, you're trying to find a way to get him on as quickly as you can, sort of as soon as half time rolls around, really, for us. So we decided to put him on ice. He was a bit flat actually, because he said he would have enjoyed the last quarter, but no, we want to make sure that he's cherry ripe for the rest of the season.
Sam, has the goalpost shifted in your mind now about what this group could achieve this year, and if you were to sneak into the finals like you are at the moment, what you might be able to do?
I don't go that far. It's really cliched, and I apologise for it. But if we don't win the next game, our season's over. So, I'm sure the outsider world will say, well, they're playing Richmond, so that's a win tick. But for us, that's a side that has got an enormous amount of quality. They've had some injury concerns. They're going to bring everything about what they're going to do this week is going to be about taking us down, and everything we're going to do this week is about taking them down. So the challenge is in that. And so as far as what the big picture and the overall looks like, I've been really consistent with what we're trying to achieve as a club is build a brand of football, build a playing contingent that can play a game style that will hold up in finals. Now, is that this year? Time will tell. And if it does, we've been building a game style that we think will stand up. But the proof will be in the pudding when our time comes. Hopefully that's this year, and that's what we're obviously aiming for now that we're in this position. But we'll be judged by our outcomes.
By that same token, is it pleasing still that it's now in your hands? You're in control of your destiny rather than chasing. You've been chasing for so long, but now, 2 weeks ago, the destiny is now in your hands. You've got the driver's seat essentially.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll be really honest. I haven't looked at the ladder just yet. Someone told we're in the 8, but there's a whole bunch of games to go in this round. So I don't know if we finish in the 8. I haven't looked at it closely enough to know. I knew before last week that if we win every game, we make it. Right after last week's loss, we needed to win every game and hope. And so hopefully after today, there's a little bit more in our hands. But we have to win the next 2 games, and as far as when I talk to the players, we have to win the next 1 game because our next loss will finish our season. And so it's been a long finals campaign for us already, really, because we've been playing like this probably since round 15 or 16. So what great experience for our players, and they're loving the experience and loving the energy that creates, because the alternative is you play the last few games of your season starting with one eye on what the next season looks like. And for us, the experience our players are getting by every game counting, the way today did in front of 80-something thousand, it's an enormous amount of experience for our group.
You sort of alluded to it before, but the forward half gets a lot of the talk, extended a lot of the plaudits, but the defensive half has grown dramatically this year. Do you think that gets almost overlooked, the growth in your back half this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the narrative we've brought the whole time is we wanted to play quite an attacking game style and to be really quite offensive, particularly in my first probably couple of years. And this year we've obviously tightened up our defence pretty well, and we've restricted teams for the most part to lowish scores, lowish inside 50s for the last couple of months, which has been, from the pressure and work rate that we're able to generate. But I think the defenders, their one-on-one contests have been fantastic. I think, someone like Sam Frost, everyone was pretty quick to be really critical of someone like him for a long period of time, and full credit just goes completely to him for the season that he's having, because he's put in an enormous amount of work. He values the things that are important. There's a classic bit of play today where it goes out on the full, I think, near him and someone else, and he's just quick to run off because he knows, I don't need to get touches. That's not how I'm judged. And when you have that level of selfless attitude from the leaders of your playing group, you know that you're in a really good position.
CJ was laid out with his calf tightness. How pleasing is it to have players like Harry Morrison sitting in the wings who can come in and play their role, especially in such a big stage today?
Yeah, I think, so CJ came off with a tight calf, got a bit of treatment, went back out, trained fine, and I had a good chat with him afterwards, and I said, look, what do you think? Is this the type of game? No, I'm playing no matter what. Or it might be a smart thing, because every game matters to us. It wasn't like, if we win this one, we're there. We have to win this game and the next game. So we had a really good discussion and decided it was the right call to have this one off. So it was a good discussion, and Harry Morrison, he comes in and plays his role. I was wrapped for him when he kicked I think it was the second goal of the game, and he's just so consistent in how he plays, and he's a player that's just so reliable. The players love knowing where he's going to be. He's always where he's supposed to be, and that's, when you have that level of predictability amongst your team, that's when you start to be able to rely on each other and play the game at a higher level.
Sam, I know you're taking 1 week at a time, which is completely fair enough, but what you mentioned earlier, you've been almost playing finals for 5-6 weeks now. In the event that you do happen to qualify for the top 8, will that almost be like a really good advantage that you've been playing these finals for such a long time if you do happen to qualify?
I got no idea. We're not going to be we're not the only team in this position. Most years, there's a handful of, there's a couple of teams at the top who are, maybe playing for the top 4, and there's a few teams that are trying to make the 8. There's like 10 teams that all have to win every game just to qualify for the 8. So I think all I know about us, and I haven't done, the ladder predictors and all those things for a period of time now, all I know for us is that we've got a game this week in 7 days' time against the Tigers that we'd shoot ourselves in the foot if we don't continue to play with the same intensity and the same intent that we have, even though we haven't won every one of those games. Over the last couple of months, we've played with a consistent level of intensity and intent. And when we've done that, we've given ourselves every chance, and this week will be no different.
Sam, can we at least get you to reflect on how far you've come in such a short period? Everyone's probably forgotten you were zipping 5, percentage in the 60s. Everyone's writing you off, criticising. Now you're on the verge of finals.
Yeah, but we deserve that. We were zipping 5, so we deserve to be written off at that point. And by the same token now, we deserve to be spoken about a side that's desperately trying to hang on to, I think we're at 8th, are we? And to desperately trying to hang on to our spot in the 8 and have some sort of impact. So a season, people always say the season's a marathon. And, our first 10K was pretty ordinary, but we've accelerated into this point, and time will tell if we get there in the end.
Thanks.